I dream of rain. I dream of gardens in the desert sand. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. The podcast where Matt and Todd go see a movie at our local Regal cinema, and then we talk about it afterwards from the parking lot. Did we like it? Did we not like it? What are our feelings towards the movie? And should you see this in theaters? Are all questions we hope to answer for you. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and welcome to this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we are going to be talking about the movie Dune, not the older version that has Sting in it, but the new version that's just coming out in this year, 2021.
Yeah, it's Dune Part 1.
It is Dune Part 1.
Yeah, all the commercials were like, "Oh, come see Dune." No, it's Dune Part 1. You should know that before you go in.
Fair enough. Dune Part 1. So, we saw this tonight. It's a long film. It's 2.5 hours. It's got a ton of famous folks in it. You've got your lead of Timothée Chalamet.
Yes.
Or Timothée Chalamet.
What about Timothy?
Timothy! Well, anyway, he's the main character. But you've also got Rebecca Ferguson, who we saw recently in Reminiscence.
Yes.
And we've got Jason Momoa is in this. Josh Brolin is in this. Zendaya is in this. Dave Bautista is in this. And I feel like Sven Skarsgård has been in stuff too. He plays the head of the...
Yeah, Stellan. His name is Stellan Skarsgård.
Thank you.
Of the famous Skarsgård family.
Yes.
He's the dad, I believe.
He's the dad.
And yes, he's been in plenty of stuff.
Oh,
That's his picture without being all fat and nasty.
Right. Right on. So yeah, we got lots of people. Who else? Who did I miss?
Oscar Isaac.
Okay, right. Yes.
Good old Poe.
Right.
And
Poe Dameron from the Star Wars.
Oh yeah, Javier Bardem
from
Skyfall. He was the villain in Skyfall.
Okay.
And he was also in No Country for Old Men.
What was his name in Skyfall?
Skyfall, he was something Rodrigo was his real name, but they called him something else for most of the movie, and I can't remember.
Was it Mr. White?
No.
What was Mr. White from?
Mr. White is from all 5 movies at this point.
Gotcha.
He was one of the original people who was part of Spectre from the very beginning.
Excellent.
But Quantum of Solace starts with Bond shooting him in the leg and capturing him.
Gotcha. All right, but we're not talking about James Bond here.
Yeah. What a tangent there. What made you think he was Mr. White?
I don't know. I don't know who Mr. White is. So
okay.
I was just shooting in the dark a little bit.
Oh, don't worry. I can tell you after the podcast.
Good. Anyone else?
That's it, I think.
That's it. Okay. Cool.
I think we covered everyone, including Stellan Skarsgård.
Okay, so...
I guess the guy who plays Polka Dot Man was in this movie, too. From the Suicide Squad.
Good.
In case anyone wanted to know.
I think the antenna girl from Guardians of the Galaxy is in this, too.
She probably is.
I think she poured the oil onto the
Stellan
Skarsgård. I think that was her.
In his mud bath?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, so, what's Dune about? Well...
Yeah, good luck with this.
Dune is a sci-fi fantasy. Well, I guess it's just sci-fi. Mostly just sci-fi. There's no real fantasy elements to it. Maybe there are.
Yeah, there is.
There is
I would
a
say
little bit.
there is.
Okay. Sci-fi fantasy with the emphasis on sci-fi.
Yes.
I'm going to say that.
Correct.
So we've got a galactic empire civilization thing going on. Like, that's the backdrop. We've got multiple planets. We've got all at least humanoid creatures seem to be the sentient race. Everyone seems to be at least mostly human.
or at least like kind of like maybe an off branch,
Yeah.
depending on what world they grew up in. Because it's like the year 10,000 something or
Yes.
so.
But not sure if that means 10,000
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
from,
I don't
from
know.
our judgment, or
If it's
or
from
what
our
it means.
judgment, then that means that these people, once they can get off planet or whatever, they've evolved to whatever planet they've.
right.
But you're not exactly told if that's true or not. You just,
True.
They just throw up a number, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, you're 10,000. Great. Okay, so we've got different. So the way that this civilization is structured is there's an emperor, and then there's these sort of like almost medieval style houses, but the houses have their own home planets. So you've got House Atreides,
Yes.
which is where our main character and hero come from. You've got House, other houses. What's
It's like
Harkonnen?
Dakin-
Harkonnen.
Harkonnen? I don't know.
I think that's it.
I thought it was no, I think you are right. I don't know why I thought it was a D word.
Yeah.
But no, I think Harkonnen is right.
So you've got House Harkonnen. Those are the two major players from this sort of imperial aristocracy standpoint. So they have their own home worlds. And so you get a little bit of those different planets at different points, but where we really focus in is on the planet Arrakis. Arrakis is a unique planet in this civilization. It has this commodity called spice, which allows people to kind of hallucinate, but also figure out interstellar travel. Like pilot starships.
Yeah, they don't explain it at all. So
They don't. But they do tell you that. So, spice is one of the most valuable commodities in the whole civilization, and I think it's only found on this planet of Arrakis. Arrakis is a desert planet, and it has natives there who are called the Fremen,
Fremen, something like that.
And they live kind of underground and in this sort of, they live apart from the rest of the civilization for the most part.
But they're the native people to the planet.
Native people to Arrakis, yes. And so what happens at the beginning is the house Harkonnen has been like dominating the planet of Arrakis forever and harvesting this spice commodity. Basically, it's like this dust that floats on top of the sand, and they have these big machines that gather it up, and then they can keep it. So the Emperor has, for whatever reason, said, "You guys are done on this planet. You guys are fighting a lot with the native Fremen people, and we want peace on Arrakis. So I'm gonna kick you guys out, and I'm gonna bring in the House Atreides to come in and stabilize things, and they'll be the ones to harvest the spice and get it out to people who need it and sell it and so on and so forth." So there's like this changeover happening, and so the House Atreides, who we meet, the dad, Oscar Isaacs.
Oscar Isaac, yeah.
Yeah. I forget his name, but he's the leader of the House Atreides.
He's the Duke, I guess.
The Duke, yes. And his son is Timothée Chalamet, whose name in the movie is Paul. And his mom is Rebecca Ferguson, and her name is Jessica. So, everybody's kind of packing up from the homeworld and going to the planet Arrakis, where they're going to try and, their goal is they're going to try and make peace and make nice with the Fremen people. And so they get there and they start doing that, and they're having some problems, equipment breakdown, etc., etc., etc. Then there is am I forgetting something before?
I don't think so.
Okay. You made a noise like.
Oh, sorry, no. I was engrossed in what you were saying.
Yes.
They're encountering what they think is sabotage, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So so yeah, this handover of equipment and area from the House Harkonnen to the House Atreides on Arrakis is it's a little tenuous, and there's like an assassination attempt and some other bad stuff that happens. But in this time, we're getting introduced to the world of Arrakis. We meet some Fremen people, and then there's an attack on the planet, and basically the House Atreides is decimated by this attack and suffers very heavy losses, and really loses control of the planet. And at that point, Paul and Jessica kind of flee the scene. They escape into the desert, and the rest of the movie is about them kind of trying to find their way and figure out how to survive, and they're trying to find the Fremen people, and so they can meet up with them, and be safe and get off the planet or whatever. So there's also this subplot. There's a couple subplots. There is this, what seems to be kind of a religious organization of women who have this way of speaking that's like almost compels people to listen when they do it in this like very commanding voice, and it sounds weird. And so Jessica is a member of this order. And she has been training Paul, her son, in the ways of the voice, they call it, using the voice. So there's like, she has this power that she can compel people to do, and he's like he can do it a little bit at this point. But this religious order of women is kind of trying to orchestrate things and play both sides of different, play both sides of this war, conflict, what have you, between House Harkonnen and House Atreides, and to get what they want, basically. And the other subplot is that Paul, when he gets to the planet Arrakis, when he comes in contact with spice, which is a hallucinogenic drug, he seems to be very sensitive to it, and he has hallucinations which are almost like foreshadowings and foretellings. And he also, even before he got there, he had dreams that seemed to be like foretelling of the future. And so the end of Dune Part 1, Rebecca and Paul have met up with a group of Fremen, and are kind of starting to travel with them. And Zendaya appears on the scene, not in dream form for the first time, with this group of Fremen. So, and that's how Part 1 ends, is they start to travel together. And I think that is the spoiler-free version of what Dune Part 1 is all about.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
There's I feel like there's too much to touch on without possibly giving a spoiler. So, what can you do?
What can you do? We did what we could.
Yeah.
And now, Todd, tell us what you thought of Dune Part 1.
Well, I'm going to start with the good things. This movie is very beautiful. Like, huge, sprawling shots and giant sandworms, and just, like, aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Like, I mean, I think so much effort went into these, not just, outside huge scenery shots, but then it's like, even on indoor stuff, it all looks very cool and good. Like, I mean, they worked real hard to, I think, produce a very beautiful movie that looks, honestly, just really crazy. Like, and down to certain, like, technologies, like, stuff looks kind of cool. People have shields, the aircraft are kind of weird and cool, and a lot of good things in that area. Like, a lot of great things. I think the acting is great. I don't really feel like anyone really turned in a bad performance or anything like that. Like, I think the acting for a movie like this is pretty up there, like, which is kind of, ridiculous when you're reading the script. It's like, I don't know how you perform these scenes for a ridiculous movie like this. Like, but everyone does really well, I thought. Like, there wasn't any kind of, like, weak link in the chain to me. There's some really great fighting, hand-to-hand action. Like, they definitely put in action scenes kind of all throughout the movie to kind of help the story along, but also it's like, the whole point of this movie is to really honestly set up the second movie. So it kind of felt like at times they were like, let's just throw in an action scene because we gotta keep moving here. And it's been a half hour since an action scene. It's just been a lot of story. So, which isn't a bad thing. Like, that's a big part of storytelling. But I think my biggest problems with this movie, and this is not to say that I didn't like the movie, but there's too much. Like, there's too much going on that you have such a hard time following because they can't dive into one thing and give it plenty of time for you to understand. It's like, okay, it's world building, it's character development. Timothy has these visions, and maybe even he's got these powers of the voice, and that's a whole thing. And then it's just there's so much thrown at you, and it's just at times it was too much, and at times it's too much because it doesn't make any sense. Like, I was telling you, Matt, when we left the theater, that I was like, I don't get these force fields that seem to be such story. Like, it's such a huge part of the story. Like, everyone has these individual force fields that they wear on their wrists. But then everyone uses, like, everyone of the infantry or whatever, like, fighting forces, they all use swords and stuff. And at first I thought it was because, well, maybe the shields is to stop guns or, blasters or whatever they use in this futuristic world. We've seen they exist. All the ships have them and stuff like that. But it's like no one uses them. So I was like, okay, well, maybe they don't work against the shields. That's the thing. But then we see, like, this dude who uses darts, like poison darts. And the shield stops it. But then it's like it keeps persisting and then it goes in. And it gets people. So I was super confused by that. And I'm sure there's probably some explanation in the book maybe. But there's no explanation in the movie. And so I was very confused. Also, for a 2.5 hour movie, so much of the movie is Zendaya. Zendaya staring. Like, it's just like every scene with her in it. Yes, they're visions and stuff like that, but it's like so, like, a lot of them are the same thing, and it's like her in front of the camera and she turns and looks at the camera. And that shot around the 10th time that I saw it got real old. Like, it's just a movie. And, I mean, it doesn't take up a whole lot of the movie, but it's like a movie of her staring. And it's also really confusing because they just intersperse visions while the story's happening. And it's like I had a hard time at times figuring out what's a vision and what's actually happening in the movie. Trying to pay attention to both, but they don't mesh well. Like, it was super jarring. And, honestly, was a pretty big minus to the movie for me. But I mean, like, as a person who didn't read the book, I haven't seen the original movie, so all this is new to me. It kind of makes you feel like, I don't know. It all depends when the next movie comes out and however movies they're going to be. But this might be a case of maybe this story is only good in book form. Like, not that it's bad, like, not that this movie was bad, but with a book, you can take the time to build this world, which is what it seems like this movie really needed, to build who these people are. Like, they tried, but it's also kind of rushed because they got to get through it. And, I don't know. I guess so much of whether or not I'm going to really like this movie or how I feel about it is wrapped up in the next movie because it's just part one. Like, I mean, are we going to look at this as one giant movie? Or is it like, for our podcast purposes, I'm going to rate this movie as what it is? Like, obviously, so much of it is supposed to be revealed and talked about in the next movie. But this is, you got to get people to the seats now. And is this movie worth seeing in the theaters? I would say yes, because of how beautiful it is. You should see it on the big screen because that's kind of what it's made for. And it's got really good things going for it. But at times I felt super overwhelmed and could not follow the story at times because it's meshed with all these visions and stuff like that. And I felt that's when the storytelling really broke down. So, yes, see this movie. I would give it a thumbs up. But it's like I can't tell you. It's hard because I can't say I really liked it because I think so much. I can't tell you if I liked it or hated it because so much is wrapped up in the next movie too. Like, so which. In general, I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, if you're gonna make a movie, and it's gonna have several parts to it, each part needs to feel like a conclusive movie. Like, and at times I felt like there was something missing in this one. Like, it's just building, and there's not a crescendo in the movie. It's just building, and then it's like, end. Like, come back for the next one, and so I don't know. This is gonna be a hard one because of all the reasons I've mentioned already. So I think that's where I'm going to end my rant-filled mess of not really knowing how I feel about this movie. Matt?
Well, I think you're right about they threw a lot at you, but I think I was here for it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like eating it up. I was enjoying all of the weird alien technologies and trying to figure out why things were happening and like making theories in my head of what's going on and what that tech is and what they're doing. I loved that.
Right.
It did feel a little bit overwhelming at times, but I was willing to just say I could just go to the place where I'm like, they explain that, great. They don't explain it, I'm going to come up with my theory about it. And if I don't understand it, that's fine. I'll just say it's a weird alien thing and go with that.
Yeah.
So for me, not a big problem for me. It is a beautiful movie. It is just the world building that they do is kind of insane.
Yeah.
It is on a scale that I don't think we've seen since, I don't know, something like Star Wars. And Star Wars had a lot more movies to kind of give you different planets and more races in Star Wars, more different species of creature. But
Sure.
I don't know. I really enjoyed what they did, the world that they were building, and all the little cool details that they tossed into it. Good with me. I thought the acting was good. I thought everybody did a good job. I agree with you that the shields seem like a dumb invention because people fighting with swords are able to kill each other with the shield on.
Right. Yeah.
And
exactly.
That shouldn't happen.
And it's such a big part of the movie too. It's like,
yeah,
there's so much shielding going on, but then it's like, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then ever since they're introduced, all you see is ways that people get around it. Like, and right. Apparently if you just try hard enough, the shield does nothing.
Right. So
maybe you just need to believe it yourself.
But the shield tech is a cool visual effect.
Yes.
I like that, but yeah, it seems kind of useless. I thought they did a good job, especially, I've mentioned the world building, but like all of the ways that they survive on this desert planet. I thought they did a good job of kind of explaining, they have special suits they wear that can capture the body's moisture and kind of recycle it and all this stuff, and how they deal with sandstorms and how they deal with these giant worms that live under the sand. Yeah. Like when we say giant, like large enough to swallow this giant spice collector that had 21 people inside of it. So the worms are big and look really cool.
Yeah.
So I would say you should see this movie in theaters. I would say try not to get overwhelmed, but if you like data, if you like information, if you like tech, you're gonna like that part of the movie, like I did. If you don't like too much, if you don't like things being more ambiguous, okay, you may struggle a little bit with this, but it's still pretty.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think that they set the stage well. I think that they used the visions that the character Paul has to foreshadow enough about what is to come that made me interested to see what's going to happen with this story.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I didn't leave the theater going like, well, I'm done there.
Yeah.
50% of the way and I'm out.
Right. So
presumably 50%. I don't know how many movies they're going to be.
Right. We don't know that. But so I would say yes, see it in the theater. It's worth it if you're feeling safe enough to do that. And I would say I really enjoyed myself watching this movie. So
yeah,
that's where I'll leave it.
Well, and something I skipped over that you touched on a little bit that I at least got to give some credit where credit's due is, like, they do really go out of their way to kind of show that each house or each people or whatever is like a very separate people, like in a sense of like they fight differently, like each house and each tribe or whatever, they all fight differently. They may share technology because it's all part of like the bigger, empire or whatever.
Yeah.
But they all fight differently and stuff like that. A House Atreides and House Harkonnen, like they fight differently. They look different. They're very different. I mean, honestly, it touches on a very basic level. House Harkonnen is all dark. Everything is dark with them. Like their outfits are dark. Everything. And then Atreides is kind of all light. You see them a lot in the light. You don't see them too much in the dark and stuff like that. So, like all that's truly good. And those little details, are great. I like seeing those kind of things. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely got to give credit where credit's due, for sure. So, Matt, how many pain boxes do you give this movie? A pain box comes in. Everyone knows about the pain box because it was in the first trailer where he sticks his hand in and he can't lift the hand out unless he dies, but he's experiencing some excruciating pain or whatever. Very weird scene in the movie. Extremely weird. But it's there. Obviously 0 being the worst because then you're not experiencing any pain. And then 5 being the best because then you can put each feet and each hand in a box and then have one left over just in case one's not working.
Right.
So
good point. So I am. So I guess when I look at this one, I'm struggling to find things that I didn't like about this movie, and I guess where I go with that is things were a little bit confusing at times, and this movie was a little bit long at 2.5 hours. Although I didn't even feel like it was too long. It didn't feel like I wasn't pulling out my phone to check on things or check the time or see where we were.
True.
But I did think about it a couple times. So, but to me, those are really the only negatives. And I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it a good score. I'm going to give it a score of 4 pain boxes out of 5.
4 pain boxes.
Yes. 4.0. What say you, Todd?
Well, there's something I haven't talked about, and I can't go fully into it because I do think is a spoiler that is seriously holding me back in. Presumably it'll be explained in the next movie, but it's like, I can only take this movie as is.
You can only take it as is.
So it's definitely going to affect my rating. And the fact that, like, so much, this movie is satisfying, but it's such a setup for the next movie too, that, like I said, I got to take it all as it is. So I'm at like probably a 3.4, I think is where I'm at. It was worth it. Just in like seeing the, big sprawling shots, the incredible CGI, the costumes, the detail. Honestly, this reminds me of like the Lord of the Rings movies, because whether you love or hate those movies had crazy detail in them. Like, and this movie feels like that, like in a sense of like, yes, it's building this to this next movie, but at least like, the detail they put into this movie is like something you just don't see anymore because it just takes a ton of effort.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, we're just pumping out movies to pump out movies because it's the big money machine. But, so yeah, I'm at a 3.4. In general, what the next movie is or how that movie is, will definitely come back and like revisit my score to this movie, because I do think, in general, how I'm going to view this is one large movie, like, because that's what it feels like how it was made. It wasn't like we threw a movie out there and then, oh, people loved it so much, we got to follow it up. Like, I think they started this whole project being like, this is just going to be one huge movie.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm at 3.4. I definitely support anyone seeing it. There's no reason not to see it. And if you're into sci-fi and you're into that kind of stuff, I mean, this has really great sci-fi stuff in it, So, I say see it. It's definitely worth it. If you're like me, you get hung up on a couple of things, but, it didn't take me completely out of the movie. It just kind of, it honestly just sat in the back of my mind. It wasn't in the forefront. It didn't make me go, I'm out of here and I, want to walk out or whatever. It was just a nagging voice in the back of my mind, but I was still able to like enjoy the movie. Like you, I thought about time a couple of times, but I wasn't like, golly, where are we here? I want to go home. Like,
right.
So yeah, that's where I'm going to end.
Great. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed Dune Part 1, and we gave it an average rating of 3.7 pain boxes out of 5, which is darn good.
Darn good.
It's darn good. Darn good.
Everyone relax. Matt's just hitting puberty.
Yes. I made it. Finally. Yeah, that's a good rating for us. And so we say you should see it. We say you should see it in the theaters and enjoy yourself. Enjoy your time.
I do think when the next movie comes out, we should rate that as an individual movie and then do a second rating, if it is just 2 movies, as one huge movie.
The Dune Saga.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We'll do that. Make a note.
Mental note, check.
Great. Well, thank you for listening to our podcast. We will continue to make these. You continue to download them, and listen. And we'll see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.